The last pasuk in Eicha made me think of Devorah. Okay, the Eicha ends. We know we repeat Hashivenu Hashem Elach v'Nashuva, but the last pasuk is Ki ima'is me'astanu katzafta aleinu ad me'od. Ki ima'is me'astanu. Even though we've become disgusting to you, katzafta aleinu ad me'od. You already got very angry at us. Okay, well, what's the point over here? What is Klal Yisrael telling HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Even though we've become ma'os because of our chataim, katzafta lina ad ma'od, Rashi says, Lo yhoya lecha laharbois ketzef ad ma'od. You shouldn't get so angry at us. So to me, it sounds like this argument is the fifth midah of Talmud Devorah that we just learned. What's the fifth midah? The midah is lo hechzik lo ad apai. Hashem does not let his anger burn forever, which the Talmud Devorah explains that even if a person maintains sin, Hashem does not retain his anger. And even if he retains it, it's not forever, but he allows it to subside. And the Talmud Devorah brings different proofs in the Tamzi Rav ben Yoyash, where even though Klal Yisrael were still sinning, Hashem restored the borders of the Jewish people, even though they were still serving Avodah Zarah. Why? But we didn't improve. The answer is, even if we don't improve, Hashem has a certain midas harachamim that he doesn't allow his anger to burn forever. Sometimes he says, okay, I got angry at you, you deserved it, you really deserved that I should still be angry at you, but my midas harachamim says, okay, now let me try chesed. We use that to explain the phenomenon of 1948. Remember from the Michtam Eliyahu that I was supposed to put? I'm not sure if I did. No, I still owe it to you. Okay. So that's the midah of loy hechsik la'ad apai. In other words, sometimes Hashem says, even though you still deserve wrath, but I allow my wrath to subside, and now it's time to do chesed. And the Talmud Devorah says this is how we should deal with our friend, even if we have to reprimand a friend or a child, and they're reprimanded. Okay, then you stop, even at a time of anger, and you say, okay, now I'm going to show rachamim. He brought an example. Even if you see the donkey of your enemy, and the reason why he's your enemy is because you saw him do an avera, so he deserves to be your enemy. Still, when the opportunity to help him comes up, you should help him. That's an example of this midah of loy hechsik la'ad apai. So I think that's the grand finale of Eicha. We're saying, Hashem, ki im ma'os ma'astanu. We've become disgusting to you, and we should be. Still, you already got very angry at us, so it's time for it to stop. Even if we don't do tshuva. And maybe if you stop, that will bring us Hashivenu Hashem Elach v'Nashuva, where Hashem's midah is, even if we don't deserve chesed, he'll do chesed because of this midah of Lahachsik la'arapai, and that might motivate us to do tshuva. So I think I just was thinking of the midah, the fifth midah that we learned in Talmud Devorah, as the message of the closing midah of Talmud Devorah. Now, Sefer Talmud Devorah is predicated, the opening stanza is, remember? Ha'adam roi sheyizdam elakainai. Person is supposed to emulate Hashem. In the Chumash, we don't find any specific examples of Hashem doing mitzvahs, only chesed. Hashem clothed Adam and Chava. Hashem buried Moshe Rabbeinu. Hashem was menachem aval to Yaakov. Hashem was koiver mesim, different forms of bikur chaylim to Avram Avinu. It happens to be that I noticed there are two things that we know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does, and we're going to be trying to do them on Tisha B'Av. And it's worthwhile to think on Tisha B'Av, when we're doing these things, not only are we doing the mitzvahs, but it's also an opportunity to emulate Hashem. Okay? So the first is the first medrash on Eicha. Okay, I'm going to tell you the first medrash on Eicha. It's actually in this Sefer. It's brought by Rav Moshe Wolfson. It's Eicha Aleph Aleph. And Rav Moshe Wolfson deals with the question of how can Hashem expect us to cry on Tisha B'Av. And many Jews, the whole year, they're not necessarily feeling in touch with the Churban, and when Tisha B'Av comes, your heart is sometimes just automatically softened. And sometimes it's easier to cry on Tisha B'Av than any other day. Where does that phenomenon come from? So I want to just share with you a very powerful medrash. The medrash says that even a human king, when a human king is mourning for a relative, he sits on the floor and he cries. No difference between a king and anybody else. Says the medrash, just like a king sits on the floor and cries, says HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I also, Kaviyachal, sit on the floor and cry over the Beis HaMikdash. Like the pasuk says, Vayikra Hashem Elokim tzavakos b'ayim levachi ulamispeid ulakarcha v'lach garsak. Hashem says, I declare this day for crying, lamenting, pulling out hair, and wearing sackcloth. In other words, if we were to go up to Shamayim and see, what is HaKadosh Baruch Hu doing on Tisha B'Av? He's not. There's no programming, special videos to watch. What's Hashem doing on Tisha B'Av? Hashem is sitting on the floor and crying. Now, our neshamas are a piece of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Our neshamas are a chelek elokam imal. So on Tisha B'Av, we're able to feel and sense that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is crying opposite us. Rabbi Wilson says this is the meaning of the pasuk, Shivchi kamayim libech noichach, opposite Hashem. What does it mean opposite? Because when you're crying, it's opposite Hashem's crying. It's not just opposite Hashem's presence, it's opposite Hashem's crying. He also says, Al narois Bavel, Sham yashavnu, there we sat, Gam bachinu, we also cried. What do you mean also? Besides who? What's the Gam? Sham yashavnu, Gam bachinu. You know that song? It's a golden oldie. Bizachreinu esiyain. Who's the Gam? Gam bachinu. It's us and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that means Hashem is literally mourning and crying over the Churban Beis HaMikdash. So on Tisha B'Av, not only is it an opportunity to mourn the Beis HaMikdash, but part of the avodah is to think this is an exercise in emulating Hashem. Hashem is also crying over the Beis HaMikdash. Hashem is also mourning over the Beis HaMikdash. We know Hashem wears tefillin, but we don't necessarily know of other mitzvahs, even though the Yushalmi says Hashem keeps all the mitzvahs. By the way, the Yushalmi learns it from the fact that when Hashem visited Avram Avinu, he stood up, so Hashem was standing up for a Talmud Chacham. That's Yushalmi in Rosh Hashanah. So, but here's an example, the Medrash tells us, of a mitzvah that Hashem does. What's an example of a mitzvah Hashem does? He's misabel over Yerushalayim. So when we're misabel on Tisha B'Av, it's an opportunity to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's Tarmei Devorah. That's a way to emulate Hashem. I want to share with you another way to emulate Hashem. The pasuk says like this. Again, we mentioned that we don't necessarily find Hashem takes lulav and esrog, or he makes kiddush, even though the Yushalmi says he does all the mitzvahs. It's not like we have examples of that. But there is one mitzvah in the Chumash that the Chumash says that Hashem does. And that comes, it's in this new good sefer. You ready for this? I'm going to tell you where it is. It's in chapter 3. Ready? It's a pasuk in Parshas Bay. Leil shimurim hu laHashem lahitziam me'aretz Mitzrayim. It's a night of watching for Hashem to take them out of Mitzrayim. Hu lahalayla hazeh. This night, shimurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael is guarded for all b'nei Yisrael l'dairaisam. Did you notice that in this pasuk it says the word shimurim twice? Listen carefully. Leil shimurim laHashem lahitziam me'aretz Mitzrayim. Hu halayla hazeh laHashem shimurim l'chol b'nei Yisrael l'dairaisam. The Baal HaTurim says twice in the Torah, in the Chumash it says shimurim, and both are in the same pasuk. So listen to how the Sforno interprets it. Kemoi shahaya meshamer umetzape legulas Yisrael kol yemei galusam b'Mitzrayim. Think about it. We were in Mitzrayim for 210 years. What was Hashem doing for those 210 years? The Sforno says He was awaiting and anticipating redeeming us. The word shomer could mean to wait for. For example, when Yosef had the dreams, it says, Vayikanu by Achiv, the brothers were jealous of him. Va'aviv shamar es hadavar. What does Rashi say? Yaakov was awaiting, not guarding the matter. He was awaiting when the dreams would come true. The word shamar means to await. You know what it means to be shomer Shabbos, the Chizkuni says? To be ready before Shabbos so that you're waiting for Shabbos. Not that, oh, Shabbos is coming, so Shabbos is waiting for you. You know, most people, they come dashing in by Mincha. Basically, Shabbos saying, hey, pal, let's go already. I'm here. Where are you? No, you need to be here before Shabbos, so you're waiting for Shabbos. That's what it means. If you want to know, someone's a shomer Shabbos. What's a shomer Shabbos? It doesn't mean someone who doesn't drive on Shabbos. It means someone who waits for Shabbos, not someone who Shabbos waits for them. In any event, just like Hashem was awaiting for the Gula of Klal Yisrael from Mitzrayim, listen carefully, Kain hu mishamer umitzape legulas Yisrael ha'asida. Hashem is likewise awaiting to redeem the Jewish people. So you know what the pasuk is saying? Which mitzvah does Hashem do? Tzipis Yeshua. Hashem does that mitzvah. It's the only mitzvah in the whole Chumash that we know Hashem does. Now, we mentioned, the Medrash says he's Masabel on Yerushalayim, but it doesn't say that in the Chumash. Aside from Gemilas Chasadim, the only mitzvah that it says explicitly that Hashem does is he's Mitzapel Yeshua. So one of the important things we try to accomplish on Tisha B'Av is to be Mitzapel Yeshua, to await the coming of Mashiach. But while we're doing that, we should think we're doing that to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're emulating Hashem, because Hashem is now. What's Hashem doing right now? Hashem is being Mitzapel Yeshua. He's awaiting, when could He redeem us? So, we mentioned three Nekudos tonight that are, I think, very connected and founded on Sefer Torah Devorah. Number one, I think the final message of Megillas Eicha, of Ki'im ma'ois ma'astanu, katzafta aleinu ad ma'oid, where you say, Hashem, you are disgusted with us, but you're ready, your anger is enough, now please try chesed on us. I think that's the midah of Loi hechsik la'ad apai. Loi hechsik la'ad apai. Hashem doesn't get angry forever. And then the point that the Medrash tells us in Eicha Aleph Aleph, Hashem sits on the floor kiviyachal and it cries and is misabel over Yerushalayim. So when you're sitting on the floor in the shul, by the way, you're all invited. We have an unbelievable Tisha B'Av program here. New material. Unbelievable material. You're sitting on the floor crying, you should think, I'm gambachinu, I'm crying along with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm emulating Hashem. And then, in general, when we have the great mitzvah being Mitzapel Yeshua, one should think that they're also emulating Hashem, just like the pasuk says, Leil Shimurim Hu, Levnei Yisrael, Lo Yitziyam Mitzrayim, Hu Halayla Hazeh, Shimurim L'chol B'nei Yisrael L'Dayroisam, that just like Hashem was awaiting the coming, was awaiting redeeming Klal Yisrael from Mitzrayim, Hashem is actively awaiting when He could redeem Klal Yisrael from the Galas. Okay, Rabbi say, Shkoyach. Have an easy fast, everyone. Shkoyach. Hatzlacha. Shkoyach.